Welcome to Central Valley Entertainment Weekly News. This week we're covering major Central California updates from Monday, May 4th through Friday, May 8th. We have school district concerns, college cybersecurity issues, court updates, public safety stories, and developing crime investigations from across the region. I'll start each story with the main points, then we'll open the source article and look closer at what was reported. For our first story, Sacramento City Unified is facing serious financial pressure. KCRA reports the district has a major budget deficit, and experts warned it could run out of cash by July. District leaders now have to decide whether to seek state help, borrow internally, or take other steps to keep operations stable. This is a big education story because the next decisions could affect students, families, staff, and classrooms. Now that we're looking at the KCRA report, the key detail is how quickly this financial issue could become urgent. The district is not just dealing with a future budget concern. According to the report, experts warned that the district could face a cash shortage by July. That raises bigger questions about payroll, school operations, and whether the state may need to step in. What makes this story important is that school budgets directly affect everyday life for families. If the district cannot stabilize its finances, the impact could reach classrooms, staffing, and services students depend on. For now, the board still has decisions to make. The main thing to watch is whether leaders ask the state for help and how soon they act. Now for our second story, several Central California colleges were affected by a major Canvas cybersecurity incident. ABC 30 reported that schools including Fresno State, UC Merced, and College of the Sequoias were impacted. The timing made this especially difficult because many students were in finals week. Canvas is used for assignments, tests, grades, and class communication, so even a short disruption can create major problems. Looking at the ABC 30 report, this story stands out because it hit during one of the busiest times of the semester. Students rely on Canvas for online exams, assignments, grades, and messages from instructors. When a platform like that goes down during finals week, it can create real stress for students and faculty. According to ABC 30, Canvas was dealing with a massive cyber attack, and several Central California schools were among those affected. The company reportedly took steps to protect sensitive information while the issue was being handled. What we still need to watch is how each campus responds, whether deadlines are adjusted, and whether any student or staff information was exposed. For students, the big concern is getting access restored quickly and safely. For our third story, we're following a heartbreaking update out of Fresno. ABC 30 reported that 12-year-old Jay Garcia suffered severe injuries after a moped crash in northwest Fresno. His 13-year-old cousin, Dominiq Puentes, died after the crash. The collision happened near Bullard and Palm Avenues, and Jay's family is now raising money for medical care and therapy. Now that we're on the source article, this update adds more detail to a crash that already devastated a Fresno family. ABC 30 reports that Jay Garcia suffered severe injuries, including the amputation of part of his lower leg. His cousin, Dominiq Puentes, died after the crash, which happened near Bullard and Palm Avenues. This story matters because it shows what families continue facing after the first headline. One child lost his life, and another is now beginning a long recovery. The article also notes that Jay's family started a fundraiser to help with medical expenses and therapy. As this case continues, the main things to watch are any updates from investigators and how the community continues supporting the family. Next, we have a court update from Bakersfield. Bakersfield Now reported that Salvador Fabian, a former walk-on band coach at Del Oro High School, pleaded no contest in a case involving an underage student. 5 other counts were dismissed as part of a plea deal. Sentencing is currently set for June 8, 2026. Looking at the Bakersfield Now report, this case has now moved into a new stage through the court process. The source says Salvador Fabian entered a no-contest plea on Tuesday, May 5th. Because this case involves an underage student, it is important to keep the wording careful and stick to what court records and the source report say. The report also says 5 other counts were dismissed as part of the plea deal. Sentencing is scheduled for June 8th, so that will be the next major update. The article also mentions a lawsuit connected to the case, so there may be more legal developments beyond the criminal court process. For now, the confirmed update is the plea and the upcoming sentencing date. For our fifth story, the Reedley biolab case reached a major court update. ABC 30 reported that the defendant was found guilty on 12 counts. The charges included conspiracy to commit wire fraud and counts connected to adulterated and misbranded medical devices. Officials linked the case to COVID test sales, and Fresno County described the verdict as an important step toward closure. Now that we're looking at the ABC 30 report, this Reedley case remains one of the biggest public health and court stories in Fresno County. The article says the defendant was convicted on 12 counts, including charges tied to wire fraud, misbranded medical devices, and a false statement to the FDA. What makes this case stand out is how many issues it connects. It involves public health, consumer trust, COVID testing, and the long-running investigation into the Reedley warehouse. According to the report, authorities linked the case to the sale of more than 1 million COVID tests. Fresno County officials described the verdict as a major step toward closure. The next thing to watch is sentencing and any additional updates from federal or local officials. Now for a developing public safety story out of Stanislaus County. Human remains were found near Knights Ferry along Highway 108 and 120. The Stanislaus County Sheriff's Office is investigating the case as a homicide. Officials have not released many details yet, and detectives are asking anyone with information to contact investigators. Looking at the source report, this case is still very limited on confirmed details. The Modesto Bee reported that human remains were found west of Knights Ferry near Highway 108 and 120. Authorities are treating the case as a homicide because the circumstances were described as suspicious. At this point, investigators have not released the person's identity, cause of death, or many details about what led to the discovery. That is why this should be treated as a developing story. The key point for viewers is that the sheriff's office is asking for tips. More information may come later as detectives and the coroner continue their work. For our seventh story, Modesto police are investigating a fatal shooting. Officers responded Tuesday night near Ellison and Lancey Drives. A man was found with at least one gunshot wound and later died from his injuries. The Violent Crimes Unit is handling the case, and police said it appeared to be isolated with no ongoing threat reported at that time. Now that we're on this source article, this Modesto investigation is still early. The Modesto Bee reported that officers responded Tuesday night to the area of Ellison and Lancey Drives after a shooting was reported. When police arrived, they found a man suffering from at least one gunshot wound. He later died from his injuries. The Violent Crimes Unit is now handling the investigation. Police said the shooting appeared to be isolated and that there was no ongoing threat to the community at that time. What we still need to watch for is whether officials release the victim's identity, any suspect information, or a possible motive. For now, this remains an active investigation. Next, we have an update from Stockton. Stocktonia reported that police identified the man killed in an officer-involved shooting as 25-year-old Moises Flores Andrade. Authorities said officers were responding to reports of a man with an axe. Police said the confrontation later escalated, officers rendered aid, and he died at a hospital. Looking at the Stocktonia report, police have now released more information about the officer-involved shooting. According to the report, officers first responded to a call about a man with an axe who was allegedly trying to break into a home. Police later located him near another residence. The article says officers attempted to engage him, and police reported that he raised the axe in a threatening manner. One officer fired a gun, and another officer had a taser ready. Officers then rendered aid before he was taken to a hospital where he died. Since this involves a police shooting, the case will likely go through multiple reviews. The next updates to watch for are investigative findings, body camera details if released, and any statements from oversight agencies. For our ninth story, Patterson High School was placed on lockdown after a reported threat. The Modesto Bee reported that deputies secured the campus while they investigated. Officials later confirmed there was no threat, and nearby roads reopened after the response. For families, the most important update is that the lockdown was lifted and the campus was cleared. Now that we're on the source article, this is the kind of school safety story that spreads quickly because parents naturally want answers right away. The Modesto Bee reported that law enforcement responded to Patterson High School after a report involving possible explosive devices and a person who may have been armed. Deputies secured the campus while they investigated. Officials later confirmed there was no threat and nearby roads reopened. That final update is important because it means the immediate danger reported in the call was not found. Still, these incidents can create fear for students, staff, and families. The next thing to watch is whether investigators release more about where the report came from and whether it was connected to any similar calls in the region. That wraps up this week's Central Valley Entertainment Weekly News Update for Monday, May 4th through Friday, May 8th. Thanks for watching and staying connected with what's happening across Central California. For more local news, crime updates, food features, business stories, events, and community coverage, follow Central Valley Entertainment and visit centralvalleyentertainment.com. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this week's roundup with your Central Valley community.